And we're back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, my people. You know that it helps us out a ton. And of course, it helps you because it helps us keep bringing you these stories every day. Now, y'all, here you're seeing your girl. You know who she is. She is the governess of Maine, Janet Mills. This is back in her younger years, y'all. A whole, 7 years ago, approximately, back when she was a young thing. And now that she can't be the governess of Maine anymore, she's looking to become the senator, the next senator of Maine. But she has some headwinds ahead of her, y'all. She has a challenger by the name of Graham Plattner. He's kind of like, think about Bernie Sanders if he were about 30, 40 years younger, had gone to the military, gotten some questionable tattoos, said a lot of questionable things online, and didn't have any real political experience, but thought that he could be a senator. So then you have Graham Plattner. So y'all, today we're going to take a look at the fact that Plattner is way ahead of your girl, y'all, way out there. Your girl look like she's about to lose, and not that's for the Democratic primary, right? And then they'll have to, whoever wins that will have to go up against Susan Collins, who's very unpopular, but you know how these things go. And also, y'all, we're going to take a look at the latest on, do you remember when Janet Mills burst onto the national stage? She was confronting Donald Trump over letting boys play against girls in her state's sports. Well, that is back on the front page, y'all, because some of the Maine school systems, they're saying, look, it's not right. And they're actually being sued by Maine's own government to force them to allow boys to play against girls in sports. This is something that going into 2026, I expect all of these types of stories to ramp up. So we're going to lead with that. And we're also going to take a look at the fact, did you know that Maine has a Somali population? Just like Minnesota, it's not as big in Maine, I don't think, but the Somali population in Maine, now that the Minnesota Somali population is starting to attract some attention, the Maine Somali population is also attracting attention. You're gonna have to wait till the very end. That's gonna be our last story, y'all. So make sure you watch until the end. And without further ado, people, let's go ahead and jump right into it. But before we do, y'all, we are launching our official Patreon. So if you want to be a founding member on our Patreon, we have just 222 slots, y'all. If you want to be a founding member, go down, click the very first link in the description, and you're going to feel good about this, y'all, because believe it or not, we are an actual paralegal school, and we help people get their paralegal certificate and get working in the paralegal field. And all of the proceeds from our Patreon, when you enroll as a founding member, all of that is going to go to scholarships for people who would like to study at our institute, y'all. So click that first link down in the description. Join us as a founding member, y'all. This deal will not come back. Now let's get into the story.
RSU 73 voting to keep a policy in place despite a lawsuit from the Maine Human Rights Commission. The school board will continue preventing transgender athletes from participating in girls' sports. As Bonnie Bishop reports, board members say they are complying with the Trump administration's interpretation of Title IX.
A policy that's been in place since October got a fresh look at it tonight as people on both sides of the issue weighed in on the controversy.
Are you aware that caring for our LGBTQ students and making them feel accepted is actually suicide prevention?
Some pushing back on the policy while others saying it should stand.
This policy wants us to protect girls by keeping girls' sports for girls. A transgender person who identifies as a woman is still putting the girls in an awkward position.
Now I want y'all to try to understand, because I had to look this up, y'all. This is the reasoning behind this whole boys competing against girls. Maine's law says that you cannot discriminate based on gender identity. So if you were to tell boys who think they're girls or who claim to be girls, if you were to tell them you can't compete against the girls, on one hand, the law would say you are discriminating based on gender identity. Now, I've always said gender identity should have nothing to do with sports. Sports competition should be based on objectively verifiable and objectively quantifiable characteristics. How tall are you? How much do you weigh? What grade are you in? How many years experience do you have? What is your biological sex? Those sorts of things. I mean, that's the way it's always been throughout human history as far as I can tell, and that's the way it should be. But Maine says, no, we want how you feel inside to also play a role. So I tried to figure out, okay, but still, how does that make sense, right? How does that make sense? How do you feel inside? How does that even play a role? And it appears that when you tell somebody your physical characteristics are these, but they say, but I feel a certain way inside. And you say, well, you can't play on the team of how you feel inside. We're looking at objectively quantifiable characteristics. They, according to Maine's law, can say you are discriminating against them. And you might say, well, everybody's being discriminated against, right? I mean, you don't let the varsity people play against the people who are not varsity. You don't let the 11-year-olds play against the 6-year-olds. Everybody is grouped into categories based on objectively quantifiable characteristics. So it's not that you are especially discriminated against. We're discriminating. That's what you do when you make groups. You say some people belong in this group and some people belong in that group over there. Well, it turns out the current interpretation of Maine's law is that that's not right, y'all. How you feel inside is of utmost importance. And if you were to only go on objectively quantifiable and verifiable characteristics and not include how people feel inside, you would be breaking Maine's law. That is the current interpretation. But then I said, well, hold up. So why should it be limited to just male and female or boy and girl? Aren't there people called non-binary? Aren't there like 27 different genders or whatever? So why isn't there a category for all of those other genders? Aren't those people being discriminated against? I mean, if someone just says they feel inside like a totally new gender, don't they deserve their own sports league? Or if they don't have it, aren't you discriminating against them? So as of now, that's an open question, right? And also you have the fact that, biological sex is also a protected class. So when you force girls to compete against boys, aren't you discriminating against the girls? Aren't you causing them a burden? That's also an open question because apparently civil rights legislation is not currently designed to resolve conflicts against two different protected classes, y'all. So
we are now hearing from the Maine Human Rights Commission on why they decided to file a lawsuit against 5 Maine school districts, claiming they are violating the civil rights of trans and gender-nonconforming students. The move comes as the Trump administration and the state are already at odds about how to handle transgender policies in school. CBS 13's Max Williams reports on the lawsuit and why some argue the commission crossed a line.
This has been the law in the state for 20 years. That in turn chills those students and their families' exercise of their rights under the act.
The changes conflict with the Maine Human Rights Act, which prevents discrimination on the basis of someone's gender identity. Members of Maine's Republican Party believe the districts are just following Trump's orders.
The state of Maine is waiting on a lawsuit that the federal government already has against us for disobeying Title IX, and I just thought that this was kind of unprecedented and really a step in the wrong direction.
So predictably, y'all, it looks like some of the parents are like, look, let's just do whatever these people say and save our money. Let's just give in. They're parents who are like, they don't have the will to fight. Maybe they feel like they don't have the money to fight. And this is how these things happen, y'all. This is how you get steamrolled. This is how you get railroaded. This is how you get rolled over. People just saying, let's just go along with it. And you know what? I'm not blaming them because there are certain circumstances. I don't think this would be one of them. But there are certain circumstances where I would say, let's just go along with it as well. Again, I don't think this would be one of them. But I can imagine that there would be other fights that I would just be like, it's not that important to me.
While the legal battle will continue, some worry about the legal bill.
Our tax dollars go to all of this legal advice.
Our community will pay and our students will pay.
But RSU 73's school board chair says there may be a way to avoid taxpayer spending.
We do have a grant that is being offered our lawyers to help fund this suit.
She says the Alliance Defending Freedom could cover some legal fees. The group known to provide legal counsel in order to protect parental rights and religious freedoms.
There is so much more we could be doing for our students, and this is what we're doing. We're gambling because we can't guarantee anything.
I've reached out to the Alliance Defending Freedom to see if this grant is on the table. I haven't heard back yet. I've also reached out to the Maine Human Rights Commission to see their reaction to this policy staying in place. I also have not heard back tonight. In Jay, I'm Bonnie Bishop from Maine's Total Coverage.
So all of this has happened and is happening under the tutelage, under the guidance-ship of, yo, girl, is she popular, Mainers? Mainers, do you like the woman that you're seeing on the screen right now, Janet Mills? So she, again, as I said earlier, she burst on the national stage when she went toe-to-toe with Donald Trump, and she said, our boys will compete against our girls, and you cannot stop it. But it doesn't look like that's working for her, y'all, because she's currently way down in the polls against an oyster farmer.
Thank you for joining us. Graham Plattner's campaign for Senate has included large crowds and controversies. And now a new poll shows the progressive Democrat has a big lead in an early poll, including over current Governor Janet Mills.
That's right. CBS 13's Julia Simone is breaking down these new numbers for us.
The Senate race has many candidates from both sides, but the names that remain the most notable are Down East Oysterman Graham Plattner and Governor Janet Mills in the Democratic primary. Graham Plattner has a 58% in this recent UNH poll. This comes after his controversy surrounding past comments he made online, along with a tattoo on his chest that resembles a Nazi symbol that he has since had covered up. While Governor Janet Mills, who entered the Senate race last week, comes in at a 24% in this poll.
Now, y'all, I'm bringing you this next story as a point of reference because the Somali Americans are all in the news right now. I am not throwing them under the bus, people, personally, okay? I have had some contact with Somali people growing up. It's always been pleasant. But, you know, we got to bring you the stories. We have to let you know what's happening out there. And this is definitely one of those stories that goes along with the national conversation and the national debate right now.
Let's introduce you to Somali American Abdullah Ali, who came to the U.S. from Somalia in 2009. You're looking at, obviously, the man on my right who had discovered this story. He became a U.S. citizen, started a nonprofit to help immigrants, started several businesses, including a multi-million-dollar migrant care service agency. And in 2024, he ran for president as he raised money to bankroll a militia in Somalia. Yes, you heard that right. A U.S. citizen who, according to the Maine Wire, gave an interview with Kenyan media in which he said he raised money in the U.S. to buy weapons, munitions, and supplies for paramilitary force he had hoped to lead as the president of Jubaland. Yes, that is a real state in Somalia. He was running for president in Somalia. Of course, he lost the election. We reached out to the Gateway Community Services in Maine, which Ali founded, did not hear back, ironically enough. The man who broke this report, editor-in-chief of the Maine Wire, Steve Robinson, dude, this is crazy.
You really can't make this stuff up. I mean, the guy's running a migrant services agency that bills MaineCare, which is what we call Medicaid, about $5 million a year. At the same time that he's running for president, and to be clear,
in Somalia,
that he's running to be the warlord of Jubaland. Elections in Jubaland aren't exactly like elections in America. It's, whoever has the most guns is able to certify the election. So he needed to buy a paramilitary organization and paramilitary support in order to win that election, and he lost it. But at the very same time that he was in Jubaland and Kenya trying to become a warlord in southern Somalia, he was getting no-bid contracts from the administration of Governor Janet Mills, a Democrat who has been in cahoots with Gateway Community Services from the very beginning. So if there's one thing that I would implore your listeners to understand, it's in Minnesota and in Maine, it's not just the Somali diaspora that has come over here and decided to engage in this criminal behavior. It's an industrial complex with the Democratic Party that enables and turns a blind eye to this behavior because they benefit from it through political support.
So yeah, y'all, Maine, for it to be kind of a smaller state population-wise, a rural state, Maine has a lot going on. So y'all, you can drop a comment about any and everything that you heard today. What do you think about do y'all agree with me with the objectively identifiable and quantifiable characteristics as being the best and probably only way to group people for sports? I mean, you could have an open league or an intersex league, you could have that, but let that be the name of it so people know what they're getting themselves into. And if they want to play in that, let them play there. That's not a problem, right? But don't call it the girls team if it's not the girls team, and don't call it the boys team if it's not the boys team. You know what I mean? That's my take. And also, what's your take on all of this that is going around about Somali people right now? I find it interesting because America's at a crossroads right now. We're trying to decide, do we really want to be open? Do we really want to be all inclusive and multicultural for everybody? And if we are, we're also trying to decide how much of your own original culture do you get to retain, and how much do you need to embody the American ideal? Y'all let me know what you think down in the comments. Drop a comment below, but before you do, please stop, hit the share button, share this video out over email, text message, WhatsApp, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, all your favorite social mediums. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. Thank y'all for watching. Love y'all, and we'll see you back in the next one.